Happy Halloween, everybody. I'm the mayor of anything. Guys, there's been a weird amount of discourse about the Monster Mash this year. And I'm sure we all saw the first video where a person was claiming that the Monster Mash is actually a stolen dance called the Transylvania Twist. Then you probably saw the second video of the person who explained that the dance wasn't literally stolen and elaborated on the terminology surrounding 60s dance crazes. However, I don't think anyone has reached a true discourse. My Halloween treat to you all is that I have gone down yet another research rabbit hole. And I propose that the singer of the Monster Mash is not only a huge liar, but possibly the biggest monster of all. Now let me get this out of the way. I'm not talking about Bobby Pickett, the man who actually composed the Monster Mash. I'm talking about the persona he plays, Boris. So what's the difference? Well, Pickett based the character Boris off of Boris Karloff, the actor who played Frankenstein in the 1931 film. However, this character is entirely original aside from the name. Let's take a look at some of the lyrics of the single.
He did the mash.
He did the Monster Mash.
The Monster Mash.
Notice that the background vocals initially call the dance just the mash, but Boris corrects that it's the Monster Mash. After being corrected, the chorus then refers to the dance by Boris's title, the Monster Mash. But notice, they keep doing it.
It was a graveyard
He
smash.
did the mash.
It caught on in a flash.
He did the mash.
He did the Monster Mash.
In the world of 1960s dance trends, doesn't it seem a little weird that Boris has to keep reminding everybody that it's called the Monster Mash? It's kind of like a nickname. It doesn't stick if you give it to yourself. Now, continuing on with the song, he talks about the vampires in the master bedroom, the ghouls coming from their abodes, then the chorus hits again, and then Boris runs out of ideas.
The zombies were having fun.
The zombies were having fun. Starting to think that Boris has never been to a party and has no idea what goes on at them. Come to think of it, looking at those previous lyrics, he says the vampires feast, which is like the only thing they're known for doing, and the ghouls just showed up. Boris, other than doing your so-called Monster Mash, nothing is going on at this party. Then we get to the guest list. Boris name drops Wolfman, Dracula and his son, Igor, and a group called the Crypt Kicker 5. This is where things get weird. Take a look at the album art for a moment. Yes, I said album. We'll talk more about that later. Well, we see the musician portraying Boris, but also notice that the only people at this party are Frankenstein, who's just born, and a band who's having to play off the sheet music. You could argue that the two bads are Dracula and his son, but just to be a swinging party, where is everyone? Boris didn't even come up with real names for some of the groups. Ghouls, vampires, which he then repeated with Dracula showing up later. Then there's a group called the Coffin Bangers, which admittedly I couldn't find anything on because the only thing that showed up was a band from 2001 that got their name from this song. Not bad music, though. He also mentions Igor and the Crypt Kicker 5. All people he had to hire. After that, the chorus comes through again, and then Dracula comes out of his coffin. I thought Dracula and his son just arrived at the party. Are you telling me that in the middle of the night, Dracula's still in bed and his son had to roll him in on some sort of weird crypt dolly? Where's the truth, Boris? And then Dracula complains that his song The Transylvania Twist was replaced. That's where we get to the rest of the album. The album The Original Monster Mash came out after the original single, but gives us a much fuller story on what's happening with good old Boris and Dracula now that everything's cool and Drac's part of the band. The first track's The Monster Mash, we all know that one. We get Rabian the Fiendish Idol, a song in which Dracula tries to get what I can only assume is newly reformed Van Helsing, now Rabian, a gig with the band. In this song, Boris laments ever since his giant lie became a hit record, everyone's been trying to use him as a talent scout. That's all well and good, but the next song is where things get interesting. The next song is headed by Dracula, and it's called Blood Bank Blues. In Blood Bank Blues, Dracula's going through blood withdrawal because the blood bank closes too early. Okay, that's kind of a Halloween monster thing to write about, Dracula being upset that the blood banks close too early and that he's struggling to find blood without attacking people. That's kind of silly and fun, but listen to this.
The reason that my blues, they did start, Boris put a stake in my teller's heart. I don't get it out before the sun is high. How will I ever fly?
After going to Boris for help and being rejected, Dracula finally confesses that Boris put a stake in his girl's heart. If he doesn't get it out before the sun is high, well, Boris is literally holding Dracula's loved one hostage and using the fact that he is going through blood withdrawal to keep him powerless and under his thumb. This song's actually kind of a downer. We're going to go to the next one. The next song is called Graveyard Shift, and it shows us even more of Boris just being a general scumbag. You see, Igor just got a new job during the day shift, you know, the time monsters don't want to be out, and he's lamenting to his master that he doesn't want to go. Boris does not care. Igor says he wants to work with Dracula because they just created a new dance craze, and the night shift has become an all-night party. How does Boris respond? He says he's going to go to the party and tell Igor about it when he gets back from work. For someone who doesn't like to be used as a talent scout, you sure did jump quick on the opportunity for a new dance craze, Boris. Starting to wonder if this was reflecting real life and Monster Mash was your only hit. The next song is called Scully Gully. This song is mostly just a list of a bunch of different monsters, werewolves, zombies, monsters, skeletons, some guy named Janos. But the important part is this line.
The spot where their master Boris waits.
To the spot where their master Boris waits. So Boris has taken his money from his big lie about the Monster Mash and has used it to become the master of most, if not all, monsters. Boris went from appropriating monster culture to now suppressing it with an iron fist. The next song is Wolfbane, and it continues to prove that the Monster Mash was just a big lie. Remember when Boris said Wolfbane showed up with Dracula and his son? Well, this song says,
He misses all the parties. He's a lonesome pup.
how can you be lonely and miss all the parties and have been at the biggest party of your career, Boris? Which one's the truth, Boris? The next song is Monster Minuet, in which Boris does the same thing that all stereotypically rich, evil people do. He throws a ball. Here we go with the name dropping again. We get Igor, who works for you. Count Dracula, whose wife you attempted to murder. Frankenstein, the guy you made. And his charming bride, who we can only assume follows the Universal movie canon, and was also made by you. Then we get Wolfman and some guy named Vitos, nameless ladies, and wait a minute, Dracula's wife, Countess Alucard, whom Boris tries to steal a dance with. The woman he's trying to murder to blackmail her husband into working for him. Dracula tries to argue, and the whole thing ends with Dracula and Vampira leaving uncomfortably. The next song is the Transylvania Twist, the dance that Boris claimed was replaced by the Monster Mash. You know, and hadn't come out yet. So far, it sounds like Boris has been blackmailing Dracula into not only being in his band, but writing off his own single and swearing that the Monster Mash was a much better dance. Boris is literally acting like a child on the playground. Like me and tell me I'm cool. Boris sucks more than Dracula. The next song is Sinister Stomp. It doesn't really add anything. Now the next song on the album features an interesting twist. The next song is called Me and My Mummy, a song where Boris falls in love with, you guessed it, an ancient Egyptian mummy. Frankly, I'm surprised he didn't try to sell or eat her, but this is for the best. Something interesting is happening with Boris. Boris doesn't know how or why he fell in love with this mummy, but I'd like to credit to the ancient Egyptian mummy's curse. So here's what happens next. The two are married, and Boris gets what he deserves and is supposedly entombed forever by her side. The next song is called Monster Motion and is sung by Dracula. We find that somehow Boris has escaped his chromatic punishment and has locked himself in his lab doing nothing but counting the money he made from Monster Mash over and over. Dracula, as well as the other monsters, are doing a wellness check on the man that currently runs their lives. All the monsters gather around and start doing the Monster Mash to try to cheer Boris up, but thankfully quickly lose interest and begin doing a new dance called the Monster Motion, having a great time without their oppressor lingering over them. He's gone for 2 seconds, and immediately nature begins healing. The next song, Monster Mash Party, seems to have had everyone come to an agreement of sorts, as it's just kind of a reprise of Monster Mash. I like to think that this track was Boris' terms of the agreement, because the rest of the songs sound like songs the monsters actually wanted to make. We get, in a row, Irresistible Igor, Bella's Bash, and Let's Fly Away, a love ballad between Dracula and his wife. And the last song is Monster's Holiday, where Boris seems to have finally admitted he has no more power in the monster world and is making one last pathetic cash grab by making the Monster Mash a Christmas song whose events we can assume are also entirely made up. Anyway, happy Halloween again, everybody, and I'll see you next time. Oh, I almost forgot. I didn't tell you all why I'm dressed like this. My Halloween costume was the scariest thing I could think of. My costume is all the time you can't get back from TikTok. Happy Halloween.